All right, the lighting is going in and out and everything's a little bit messy today, but I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna film it. We'll see if it looks like crap. I'll just redo it, but probably I won't redo it. So this is what we're gonna get. Hi everybody. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if this is your first time. Today I'm going to be doing the community tag One Deck Gone Wild. I was recommended this tag by a lovely subscriber of mine. You know who you are. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'm so excited to do this. Of course, I have to do it with my Herb Crafter's Tarot, because what other deck would I do it with? If I don't do it with this deck, if you saw a video of me doing this tag with a different deck, that's when you know I've been abducted by aliens and you need to send help. So let's get into the questions. The first question is, why did you pick this deck? And I mean, if you've seen any of my videos, I think that answers it. This is definitely my deck. I don't have anything to add. This is my deck. This is the one. The next question is, what is your favorite set of minors? And honestly, I was thinking that it was going to be the 7s for me, or maybe even the 8s. But as I was flipping through, I realized that it was the 6s. I just really like all of these cards and the messages that I get from them. The feelings that I get from them, the energy that I feel. I just always really feel energized when I see these cards. And it's probably also because the 6s for me are about that, like, success and stuff like that. But it's also just the images. Like, this one feels like a beachy summer day. This is probably that same day. Actually, this whole thing could be it. So this is early morning journaling, and let me put this in order. Let's do this. Okay. I don't know. I feel like these cards could be in a couple different orders, but it tells kind of a story. So you start the day off with your journaling and planning everything out and scripting maybe, and then you move to having a like special lunch hangout at the beach where you're like playing and being young and carefree and just channeling your inner child. Then you move on throughout the day to coming home, and this is the afternoon. You're feeling a really big spark of energy and you feel like you're going to channel that into a spell. You do the spell, and then at night you and your friends connect and combine to finish the spell and really bring those manifestations into real life. So the 6s are definitely my favorite from this deck, and I was surprised. I only figured that out by doing this tag and actually looking through the cards and deciding that's what I like best. The next question I decided to answer is number 4, and it's, what's your favorite representation of the color blue in this deck? And I mean, it's got to be the Adelita of Water, which is the Knight of Water, or the Knight of Cups in this deck, just because there's so many different colors of blue. The first one that caught my attention that I really love is the deep blue summer sky, but I also love this kind of tealish of the water, and also the cup is gorgeous. So there's so much blue. And also flipping through this deck, I realized that I think about half of the cards, half of the entire deck has some color blue on it. So that's just a fun little thing I noticed. The next card is, what is your favorite representation of the card? And without a doubt, this is my favorite strength representation of all time. I talked about this in my first video ever, which is my initial walkthrough of the deck. I talked about this probably a little bit less in my majors walkthrough, what I did recently, but I talk about this deck or this card a lot. It's just, I mean, it's beautiful, it's perfect, and the connection that I have personally with garlic really helps to cement the meaning of the card for me also. The next question I chose is, what card makes you feel nostalgic? And it's definitely the Four of Water was my first choice, what I was thinking. But I also think that that Strength feels that way. Both of these cards remind me of being in my grandparents' house and hanging out in the backyard. This one is definitely a gardening card for me at my grandparents' house. And then this card just, it feels like having summer vacation in school, from school, in their backyard, reading, and then maybe helping out in the garden, and then this is our lunch break. This card makes me feel nostalgic for sure. Just being at my grandparents' house during the summer. The next question is, what's your favorite animal that's represented in this deck? And I mean, can you tell? I love cats. Of course, it's this beautiful sleeping baby in the Icha of Air, which is the Page of Swords. I mean, I can't. It's so freaking cute. Of course, I would pick the only little kitten in this deck. The next question is, which card constantly follows you or appears in this deck? And lately, it's been the infamous Tower. I mean, this card has been following me around since I started my Chariot year in August of last year, but I also have a feeling it's just going to follow me throughout this whole year of 2023. It's definitely slowed down, and it's moving through my life. So previously, it would show up a lot in the kind of staff section of the Celtic Cross, and now I see it moving through. It was the upcoming energy before, and now it's the kind of subconscious knowledge, wisdom that I know, my internal wisdom. That's what this card is showing up as. And it actually makes a lot of sense because I'm starting to kind of take control of this energy and this card. So hopefully I won't have to see it for too much longer, but honestly, it's like an old friend at this point, so I'm used to it. The next question is, if you made this deck a meal, what would it be? And just the way that this deck is so summery, in my eyes, it feels very summery. I would definitely make it some like cold type things, like a fruit salad, a nice crisp salad with like veggies from my garden. Theoretically, if I had a garden, that's what I would do. And maybe some really good sourdough toast to go with the salad, and just some light. I would do like a white tea, iced tea with fruit in it, and it would be so good. So I think that's what I would make this deck if I was making it a meal. The next question is, what is this deck's favorite book? And I had to pick two. I picked a nonfiction and a fiction. So the deck's favorite fiction book would be Willa's Grove by Laura Munson, just because it feels very much like the energy of this deck. It's very connected to nature and to the world around it. The book is about kind of finding yourself and answering that question of what's next. And I read that last year or earlier this year. I think I read it last year for the first time, and it feels very much like this deck. This deck's favorite nonfiction book would definitely be The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wolleben, because, I mean, this deck is all about nature. So Of course, it would be a book that really goes in depth about nature and stuff like that. The next question is, if you were to travel anywhere, where would you take this deck? And definitely everywhere. I mean, I take this deck. This deck travels with me everywhere I go. I think if I were to plan a trip for the deck, it would probably be either a lake house in the summer, or it would be to kind of a remote mountain meadow cottage in the spring or the fall, like the liminal time. Those are the two places that I would take the deck. And I think that probably that's also answering question 14 of where would the deck want to go. I think probably a cottage in the middle of nowhere surrounded by nature and mountains is definitely where the deck would want to go. Or like even just a community garden in the city to be surrounded by both nature and kind of humanity. Okay, the next question is something that I would change about the deck. And the only thing that I would want to change about this deck is the cardstock. The cardstock is beautiful and it's perfect for a mass market deck. Don't get me wrong, it's US Games cardstock, so it's really good. It shuffles really nicely. It's broken in really well, but I just want it to be linen. If I could get this deck in linen cardstock, I wouldn't need to buy any other deck ever again because this is exactly what I want. And I just love the way that linen decks feel. I like the way they shuffle. I like how durable they are. And this is going to be a durable deck. I mean, I know that nothing's horrible is going to happen. It'll bounce back from whatever I put it through, but I would like a little bit of that linen texture, and I don't have that with this. So that's literally the only thing. It wouldn't be anything about the cards. It's just the stock and what they're printed on. The next question is, which card would you hang in the room or house of? And for sure, it's the Nine of Earth. Let me scoot you back so that definitely I want to hang out in the room of, or the house of the Nine of Earth. It just feels so cozy. It feels like it would smell delicious of like baked goods. And it would feel very homey. I feel like this card probably has either an outdated or one of those vintage looking like 1950s kitchens, but they've maintained it and kept it up with that kind of aesthetic to have it be intentional. And I just feel like this would be such a cozy card to hang out in or to hang out with. The next question is, what sets the deck apart, or something that sets the deck apart? And for sure, it's the court cards and the Three of Air. So the Three of Air, I'm just going to touch on this quickly. The way that the Three of Air is depicted on the card is different because it's not that heartbreak. It doesn't look like there's no heart. There's no swords piercing through the heart. Although in the book, it talks about heartbreak, but I don't really read the book very often, so it's not something that bothers me very much. But this card is definitely something that sets it apart from a lot of decks, modern decks now. Also, the court cards set this deck apart, and I mentioned this in one of my videos, but I can't remember which one, so I'm just going to reiterate it here. I like that it steps away from the patriarchal hierarchy of king and queen, and I like that it just shows hands. And although these, for me, what I see in these hands look to be quite feminine hands. I think that people can place themselves into it. Yes, there's nail polish and there's jewelry especially in these cards, in this suit, but I don't think that jewelry and nail polish has to stay a strictly feminine thing. To use jewelry and nail polish, and I think that our society is moving away from that a little bit more now, but I hope that it continues to, so in the future when people look at these cards, they can see themselves in it regardless of what they identify as. I like that there's a lot of variety in age. We've got this child's hand and this very older looking hand. I really like that you kind of have the progression, and I like what each of these court names mean. So the hija is like the child, and I like the images that brings up for me, the ideas that I think of when I hear the child, and it makes sense to me a lot. The Adelita is a warrior, so similar to the knight, but I view it as being driven and having that internal passion instead of doing it just for like the honor and duty. It's kind of doing it for yourself and having that internal drive to do something. The madre is the mother, and I like that we have the mother. Mothers are very nurturing and caring, but also like anybody can be a mother. It's not like you have to be a woman and have a child to be a mother. I think that everyone has the ability to, exhibit tendencies of a mother or become a mother. Taking care of your animals, you can view yourself as a mother. It's just, I don't know. The curandera is the healer, and I really love this card in replacement of the queen, or in replacement of the king, because this is the person who is healing the whole. We have a new cat. This is Baby J. He's not new to me, but he's definitely new to the camera. He wanted to stop by, I guess. But the curandera, the healer, takes care of all of these generations and is the cycle breaker, in my opinion, and stopping the cycle of hurt and really beginning a new one of healing and growth and emotional maturity, intelligence, and awareness. So the court cards are definitely ones that I feel very strongly for. I love those. Let's see what's next. The next question I chose is 22, and it's, if the deck had its own collection, what would it collect? And for sure, like right off the bat, it would collect stones. I'm thinking like river stones and sea glass and seashells, all the things that come from the water, I think this deck would collect. And maybe rocks, even just found in the garden. Maybe packets of seeds. Lots of things this deck would collect. But for sure, like river stones and stuff like that first came to mind for me when reading that question. The next question is question 23. Draw random cards and do bed, wed, behead. So I'm going to do that. All right. 3 cards. Oh, okay. This is, wow. Okay, let's see. So we've got the 10 of fire, we've got the 3 of air, and we've got temperance. So, I think I'm going to bed the 10 of fire because, the 10 of fire is a spicy card. It's this huge amount of passion. So, I mean, it feels like a no-brainer. I'm going to wed Temperance because all day, every day tea. No question about it. And I'm going to behead the Three of Air. Even though the Three of Air is a card that I just praised, I am going to have to behead it. I'm sorry. That's just how the cookie crumbles. Question 24. What's the signature favorite scent flavor of the deck? And in my opinion, what I thought initially was rosemary. This feels very much like the energy of the deck. It feels quite airy and it feels like it would smell like rosemary all the time. But I also wanted to leave it up to the deck because there are scents and things on each card. So I'm going to shuffle and then let's see what the deck thinks that its signature scent is. So Herb Crafter's Tarot, what would you say your signature scent is? What would you say that your signature scent is? All right, this shot out, so I'm going to take it as what the deck says that its scent is. And it's also an air card, but it's oregano. And I get that. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. So oregano is what the deck has chosen for its signature scent. And, you know, I like that. I support. I agree. I can see that and I agree now. Okay, the next question is, how old does the deck believe it is? I definitely think that this deck feels like it's old. The first thing that came up to me when reading that question is the deck is like 76. That's the age that popped into my head. I think that this deck is definitely a grandmother. It brings out grandmother energy for me. But like just wise elder energy is kind of the vibe that I always get using this deck. The next question is, who is the deck's father? And I wasn't going to answer this question. I was going to skip over this one, but then I got thinking and I knew the answer, so I had to share. But for sure, the deck's father is Odin because of the association with Odin and Burdock and the runes and all of that stuff. It just felt right and totally made sense to me that the father of the Herb Crafter's Tarot is Odin. I think, is he Norse god? The next question is, what is the gender of the deck, or does the deck identify as a gender? And I think that yes, at least for me, this deck feels, although, I don't know, some cards feels gender neutral, but overall in my view of the deck, the way that we interact, I feel like it is feminine. It is identifies as with she, her pronouns. But that's just kind of my take. I think that other people can feel differently about this deck, and all of our connections are different. All of our relationships with these cards are different. So I may feel one way, but other people can feel differently. And that is valid. All of it is valid because it's our personal connection and relationship. So it's okay that they're different. And it's probably good that they are. The next question I chose is, which card in the deck do you feel most represents you right now? And I cheated and I chose 3. So the Chariot, definitely, because I'm in my Chariot year and I'm really starting to feel the momentum and drive of that. But there are things that are still shadowy that I'm not quite clear on and feel like I'm not on solid ground about when it comes to life and everything in general. So I feel like the moon card also has a play into it, but I also feel like I'm moving very quickly in directions. I'm being decisive and shooting forward, but also being unsure and overthinking. So I think all three of these cards very much represent different aspects of where I am right now. The next card, or the next question, is what card in this deck gives you a unique spin on your regular opinion of the card? And I have two, actually, because one just came to mind. I chose the Awakening card, which is the renamed Judgment. And it does give me a new spin on things. It gives me a new idea about things. It feels like a spiritual awakening instead of coming back from the dead. It feels like much more internal to me than I feel like most Judgment cards feel. They feel like external, like this is happening to you. But this one feels like I am bringing this change about. The other one that I just thought of, which fits almost as well, if not better, is the Hierophant, because this card, I talked about it in both of my walkthroughs, I think. This card feels so much more healing to me than the typical Hierophant does. The typical Hierophant gives me some shadow just because I feel like we shouldn't have to have someone else interpret things for us and give us advice and tell us what we're doing and be our spiritual interpreter. I think that we are our own spiritual interpreters. But this card and this depiction of it feels like passing down generational knowledge and not holding things a secret. This is our tradition and this is how you do it. Let me teach you, let me show you, in an open and welcoming way instead of like a gatekeepy way, like I can kind of feel with some Hierophants. So I am so glad that I just saw that one on top, because that definitely fits with what I was feeling too. The next question is, which card in the deck makes you feel calm, seen, or emotional? And I have two. I mean, of course. The first one, this wasn't the first one that came to mind, but this is one that makes me feel seen and it makes me feel cared for. Whenever I get this card, I feel like I am the child and the person whose hand is holding on to the water and as well and is like guiding my hand is either the deck or my ancestors, my spirit guides, goddess, and I am being taken care of. And this is a card that reminds me of that so much. Another one, this one, just looking at it makes me feel calm. It's just the energy that the curandera of water brings is self-assured, but not like cocky. It's just, I've lived so much life that I've earned where I am. I've earned all of my knowledge and wisdom and strength. And now I'm just gonna relax because I'm doing exactly what I want. I don't have those worries and fears about what other people think of me or anything like that. This card is very, very much an energy that I want to exude when I get older. And just looking at it makes me feel so happy and calm and like really good. The next question is, what is the outlier of the deck? And I couldn't really think of one until I saw this card. And I think that it's just the colors are different. So it's the Nine of Water, and it's just a very pink card, but it's also a very light pink card. Like, I think that we don't have a lot of light pinks in this deck, so it feels very different, and it is sometimes a little bit jarring for me seeing it when I pull it out, just because most of the cards have a majority of green or like this blue or a really like yellow color. So like kind of some earthy or like sky color cards, and this one feels very different. And it's not bad, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but it is something that, you know, it is something that I noticed, and it's one that I pulled out because I noticed this. Hi, everybody. Another Editing Rose here. I completely forgot to answer a question. So the last question that I wanted to answer was, what is this deck's favorite spread? And the spread that I like to do the most with this deck is the Celtic Cross, but I think that this deck enjoys doing the 5-card, 5 W's, 5 question spread that I talked about in my previous video, which I will link. Sorry about that. That's all. So that's all I've got. Those are the questions I decided to answer from the one deck on Wild Tag. I loved this. I think this was so much fun and such a cool way to connect with my deck and think about it differently and have that little conversations and new ideas form from it. So that's all I've got for you right now. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for watching, and thanks to the community for making this tag. This was such a fun one, and definitely one that I will revisit answering different questions probably in the future when I'm feeling time has passed, and see if any questions feel different, if any answers are different. So that is all I've got for you right now. I hope you're all doing well, and I will see you in the next one.